Hello and wishing all of you a very happy and prosperous new year. Recently, my daughter, who is a high school student, came to me with a mathematics problem. What she wanted me to do is to explain to her in a step by step manner how to get to the answer of a certain problem. Now, this had its own challenges because things have changed a lot since the time I studied mathematics. So I had to go and refer the textbooks, understand the methods which were being used now, and actually explain it to her. This was not easy, I guarantee you. This is when I realized that we could potentially use the powers of AI to create an agent which could do this work for us. And this is what this video is all about. So let's get right into it. What we'll be doing today is to create an AI agent who is essentially a brilliant mathematics tutor, right? And this agent will help the high school student understand the mathematics problem and give a detailed explanation on how to solve the problem. For this, I'll be using the n8n agentic workflow. And in case you're new to n8n and you do not know how to use it, just go through my previous videos. I will share the description, the link to those videos in the video description below. So just have a look into it. This is how a n8n AI agentic workflow would look like. So the high school student would put a mathematics question paper into a Google Drive. This Google Drive would be polled at frequent intervals by a scheduler in our n8n workflow. And once it understands that an event has occurred for a file creation within the Google Drive, which is what happens when the question paper is loaded into the Google Drive, it would trigger the workflow. So this is essentially a trigger there, a scheduled trigger. The next step would be a switch, which we would require because the workflow would need to know, it would need to determine what type of document has been passed to it. So is it a PDF document, is it a JPEG, essentially is it a picture, or is it just plain text? Because the processing for this would be slightly different, it would need to extract that information from a PDF, it would need to extract it from a picture if it's a snap. So the processing is a little different, and we would be using Mistral OCR to, if it's a PDF or a JPEG. The reason why I'm using Mistral OCR is because I found it to be more accurate. So you could use something like Gemini or even ChatGPT's OpenAI nodes, which have the capability of analyzing images or PDFs and extract text from it. And even n8n has inbuilt capacities to actually extract text out of a PDF. But I have found Mistral OCR to be more accurate because there were cases where I remember that when I tried it, so I have done quite a few trial runs with it. When I use something like the inbuilt n8n PDF extractor or even Gemini analyze image node, what happened is that certain things were not picked up. For example, there was a case where I needed to find the square root of 5.5 for one of the questions, and it just picked up square root of 5. It just ignored the point 0.5. So this is not ideal, right? You would want it to be accurate, especially if it is mathematics. It has to be accurate. That is why I chose Mistral OCR. You would need to set up a API key for using this, and I'll show you how to do it in a minute, right? But essentially, we would pass this information to Mistral OCR in the case of a PDF or or if it's a snap or a picture, the data would be extracted by Mistral OCR. If it's a plain text, we have an extract text option within n8n, inbuilt within n8n. So that would suffice for our purposes, and we would pass it to Gemini AI. You could use any reasoning AI to do this. Gemini, with its latest release of Pro 3, I think is brilliant in doing this deep research thinking sort of things. It would solve the question papers to us. We would give it the right system prompt, and it would generate a document with the solved questions, which it would then put it back into a Google Drive accessible by the student. So essentially, the whole trigger, the whole workflow is automated. The student just needs to provide the question paper in the Google Drive, and after a few minutes, he or she would have the solved question paper sitting there ready for their peruse. Right. For this demo, I have created three folders within my Google Drive, which are Aristotle Q, Aristotle Answers, and Aristotle Archive. Now, as you would have guessed, Q would be where I would put the question papers, answers are where the answer papers would be pushed into, and archive is essentially where the old question papers would be moved once the processing is complete. That is how I know that the processing has been complete. Now, this is optional. You might not need archive. I just put it because as I was doing my trials again and again, I was trying to load the same question paper. So the trigger would not work because essentially I had the old question paper sitting within the Aristotle Q folder. And when I tried to upload the same question paper with the same name, it would fail. So it was a bit annoying. And this is essentially a workaround where if I found that if my processing has finished of that question paper, I just move it out from Aristotle Q to Aristotle Archive, which is something you might need in a workflow, right? So I just thought to keep it there. Entirely up to you if you want to use this option or not. But the gist of what I've said so far is just create some folders where you would need to put the question paper and take the answer paper out of. Alternatively, you could just have just one single drive where you would put your question paper and it would generate the answer paper in the same drive. It's much simpler, but this is more organized and structured. So as you can see, I have already started my locally hosted n8n instance, which I have exposed to the internet using a Cloudflare tunnel. If you are interested in how to do it, okay, just check out my previous videos, which I've linked in the description below. But for this particular demo, you do not need to expose it to the outside world. It would work just as well with a self-contained, locally hosted n8n instance running in your machine there, right? So I am on my home page and just let me click on create workflow. On your right hand side, click on the plus button and search for Google Drive, right? And then on the triggers subsection, select on changes involving a specific folder. That is what we want to select. Essentially, whenever a file lands in this folder, it will generate an event. That is the event that I want to listen to. Okay. As you can see, you will need your Google OAuth credentials set up there. Since I've already created a couple of Google OAuth accounts, it automatically shows that. So I'll pick any of this. And if you do not know how to do this, just check out my previous videos, which I've linked in the description below, where I have explained in detail how you can set up Google OAuth credentials for whatever you're trying to do with Google tools, essentially Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Drives, etc., etc. Right? So I'll just select my pre-configured account there, and the poll time I'll just give it every minute. So essentially, this will poll that drive every minute to look whether a new file has been created or not. So I could add a poll time. I'm not going to do that. Trigger on, yes, it's changes involving a specific folder, and then from the folder list, if I have set up this my OAuth credentials correctly, when I click this, it should show me the list of folders that it has access to. So let me click on this, and yes, you can see it shows me the various folders that I've created that it has access to. So I'll be choosing Aristotle Q. Where are you? Right. So this is the folder where I want my listener to listen to. Essentially, it would listen to the file event, created event, and I'll just say watch for which event is it. So it is file created event. This is the event that I wanted to watch out for. Other things I'll just leave it as it is, and I've configured my first node. Let us test out this flow. Okay, so I'll just click execute, and I immediately run into a problem. So it says that there's a problem in the Google Drive trigger, and the problem is there's no data with the current filter. So it is expecting something to be there in that folder, right? And if you remember, we do not have anything. So I'll just show that to you. So if I go into my Google Drive, which is getting pulled for, it's essentially empty. And that is why that error happened. So I'll stop the execution and I'll put in a file here. So let me upload a file. So I'll just do file upload, and I will just select a question paper. Okay, this is a 9th standard mathematics high school question paper, which I'll be using to do the demo. And so this is the question paper that I will be giving the AI agent to solve, essentially our mathematics tutor, right? And as you can see, this is a real life question paper. So this is something that was given to my daughter for her 9th standard examination, half yearly examination, mathematics examination conducted in October. And you can see the scanning is not that neat. It has some folded corners, and being mathematics, it is tricky. So it has fractions, it has square roots, it has diagrams, so it has some degrees, it has brackets, congruency symbols, so a whole lot of things going out there, right? So it has exponents, and the scanning itself is not great. It has folded corners, things are irregular, and this is why it's important that we have a good OCR mechanism with us, right? And that's why I went with Mistral. So you'll get why I went with something like Mistral instead of using a generic OCR extractor. Okay, now our drive does have a question paper sitting right in it. So let's go back to our flow there, and let's try to execute it again, right? So, and this time it worked correctly because the drive was not empty. So let just move my video up, and let us have a look at the logs. Yes, everything looks okay. Drive permission, it gives a link and things like that. If I just click on this node here, right, it will give me the metadata of the document on what it actually extracted. So that works brilliantly. Now what this enables us to do is to set up the next step, right? We have this here. So let me just pin this data so that it's available for our testing purposes. And this is a small trick that most of you would probably not know. So you could always pin the data from a node, which essentially means that that data will be available for testing purposes. So you won't have to execute things that cost money again and again. In our case, though it's free, we are using Google Drive. There might be cases where you just run it once, and then if you want to set up other nodes, you just use the data that you executed once, right? So you pin that data, and that is why this thing right here is very useful. Let us set up the other nodes. Now the next step that we would need to take is to download the file. And this is what I love about something like n8n, because there might be other agentic workflows out there which would do the work for you. But this is something which also makes you think, right? So it makes you think what would be the next logical step. So you would have to break down the steps in your mind, and only then your whole workflow would work, if that makes sense. Anyway, so let us go to the next node and just search for Google Drive again, right? And here what we need to do is we need to download a file. So select this option, which is below the file actions here. Download a file, and again just select your Google Drive account. The resource will be a file, the operation would be download, and the file, it would be from, would it be from a list? It would not be from a list, essentially it would be from an ID, right? Because we are not trying to download the file directly from Google Drive. We have already got it, right? So we have a trigger sitting right there, listening for a file creation event, and it would have the ID. So I'll just select by ID, and I would just give it as an expression. So it would be a dynamic expression that I would need, because it should pick up the file regardless of the name. If I put in something like a fixed file name, I would always have to upload the file with that particular file name, which is not something I want. It doesn't make any sense. So it can be any file name provided it's in the right format. So I just click on expression here, and I just search for file ID on the left hand side. Right. So let me just go to schema, and this should have a file ID right there. Right. So I just bring it here. So I could use that, but I think I might have a better ID, right? So this is actually to do with the JSON.permissions, the first occurrence of the array, I take the ID. So instead of that, let me see whether I have something that directly gets the file ID. So I'm just scrolling down. So this seems a good thing, right? So let me just remove this and let me try this side. Yeah, this seems much more better, right? So JSON.id. It doesn't matter. I mean, you would always have your permission.id, but make sure you give it the ID of the file, right? That it can pick up. So here it is JSON.id. I just dragged and dropped it from the left hand side. So let me close this. Actually, I'll just execute this step. Okay, let me just. So I'm back in this node, and I'll just do execute step, and it's executing the node. And it has extracted the file correctly. So you can see it has extracted the file name correctly. It has given the file extension is PDF. Mine type is application slash PDF file size. So it has extracted the file correctly. Brilliant. Now let us go and set up the next node, right? So let me just go back to the diagram so that you understand where we are and what we have done. So we have set up our Google Drives, we have set up the scheduler, and the next step is the switch that we need to set up. And why do we need this? We need this because there will be different file formats. So it could be a PDF, it could be an image, it could be a text. So based on what file format it is, I need to do different types of processing, and that's why I need a switch. So let us set up the switch. So I will just minimize the logs there, and I'll just search for switch. There you go. And it brings up to opens up the configuration pane of the switch. Now, those of you who have done some sort of programming would be familiar with what a switch is, right? So essentially, it is a collection of if-elses. So if one value is of this type, do this. If it is of another value, do this. So instead of a single if-else, think of it as a collection of if-elses, right? And this is essentially what it is. And the mode that I'm using is rules. You could have an expression. I'll just use rules where I'm saying if the value is this, do this, the value is that, do this. Here I'll be using an expression, right? So what I want is I want to know what the file format would be, and based on the file format, I would do the next sequence of processing. So let me click on JSON here. No, it's still the schema. Sorry, the schema. Just click on the schema there, and you should be having something like a file extension. So just let me search for it. So if I scroll down towards the end, right? Now this can be a little bit frustrating where you need to find the exact value, right? The file, and you have something called full file extension and the file extension. So you'll find it towards the bottom. I'll just take the file extension. I'll just put it here, and as you can see, it says the result is PDF in this particular case, and I'll say if the value is PDF. Okay, then I'll say add a routing rule. Okay, this is for the second routing rule. I'll just rename the output from the first one, by the way. I'll just put the output name to be PDF. So essentially what I'm doing here is, if the file extension is PDF, the output name is PDF. So I'm just renaming the output here. The second route that I'm adding is if it is going to be something like PNG. Okay, sorry, I mean it's the same thing, isn't it? So if the value is PNG, the output would be PNG. On second thoughts, let's just make this text. Okay, so it makes sense that we group things that are similar together. So if it is a text file, let the output be text. I'll just add another routing table, and now I'll add something like if the value is PNG, the expression will remain the same. Okay, so let's click on expression. All right, I'll rename the output to be PNG. I'll add another routing table, and I'll just say if this is going to be JPEG, right? I'll just put it as JPEG. Now hold on. Just let me check whether the sample file I have is actually JPEG or is it JPG. Just check this out. Okay, the sample I have is a JPG, not a JPEG. So I'll just change that. Right. So I'll just go here and I'll just change that to JPG, and I'll just say, yeah. I'll just enable this. I mean, it's entirely optional, but if required, convert the types when required. So if the type of an exception doesn't match the type of the comparison, n8n will try to cast the expression to the required type. Okay. I don't think it's applicable in this case, but just to be safe, I'm just enabling it. And I think the configuration for this node is done. So let's just try to execute it and see what happens. Right, it has worked successfully. Brilliant. Let us go back to the main canvas, and now we can see, right, a switch has been set up. So, and the different outputs we named, just the PDF, text, PNG, JPG, it's all there. So now let us try to set up the processing for the PDF, right? And then for the PDF, PNG, and JPEG, we'll be using Mistral. So just let me search for Mistral OCR. There you are, your Mistral AI. Just select that, and it will just say extract text. So, and as you can see, it brings up my Mistral cloud account. Since I've already set this up, if you do not have one, it would ask you to set up one. So it would ask you for an API key, right? So create new credentials. This is where you provide your API key. Now, a good thing about Mistral is that it's open source, and for experimental and study purposes, its API key is absolutely free with some limits, but for our purpose, it's more than enough. So what you need to do is you need to go into Mistral. So let me go there. So on your browser, just type https colon slash slash console.mistral.ai. The first time you try to do it, it will ask you to sign up. Just do the sign up. It, if I remember correctly, it asks you for your telephone number, but it will not ask you for your credit card details. So just provide whatever it asks for, which is absolutely fine. And then just go to your API keys section here and just click on create a new key. That's it. You're all set. Copy that new key, come back to n8n, right, and just copy paste it here, and you're all done. Once you have set up your account, right, I think the other things remain exactly the same. So the model is a Mistral OCR latest, right? Document type is document. Input type, make sure you're selected binary data. Do not select URL or anything like that. Input binary field should be data. That's all you need to ensure, and you're done with this step. So let's just execute this and see what happens. So let me execute this step, and you can see it's executing. And just move my and it has worked successfully. So if I just go on my JSON here, right, you can see that it has actually extracted everything. One thing that you will notice is that the fractions, for example, if it's 2 by 3, right, it actually brings it up in this format, frac, it opens a curly braces, 2 and 3. This is not exactly readable. And then you have something like a polynomial. Okay, so this is actually supposed to be x raised to 3, uh, but it's not exactly in a friendly human readable format, and this is where we will need an AI agent to actually make sense of what this is stating. And when it outputs it, the AI agent should output it in a human, or let me say student readable format. So let's do that. I'm back on my canvas, and make sure you always save your workflows. It's supposed to be auto saved. I am on version 2.0.3, which they say that it automatically saves the workflows, uh, but it does not happen in this case. Probably a minor bug, which I'm sure they'll rectify. But let us set up the next node, which will be our agentic AI node. Let me just move my window a little bit here, and just let me say zoom to fit, okay, so that you can see what is going on. And let me click on the plus button. Let me search for AR agent node, and it brings up the AI agent configuration page. The source for the prompt gives a message. It will not be a connected chat trigger node, right? So it will be defined by us. So we will be saying it what it needs to process. And here I will just drag and drop pages, right? So if I just drop, say if I drag and drop markdown, it might have more than one markdown, it might have more than one pages, right? So I want all the pages to be dropped into to be processed. That's why I've just selected pages. So I just drag and drop it, and it does the rest. So it has the prompt, user prompt. Essentially, this is what it needs to solve. Now let me add the system prompt. And if I scroll down, I have an option of adding the system message, right? So it's on add option, click on system message. This is where you will define what you want the AI agent to do or how you want it to behave. Let me show you the system prompt for that. So this is my system prompt. So feel free to pause the video as I'm scrolling through and just copy it, right? So the persona is your Aristotle. I have named my AI mathematics tutor as Aristotle, an expert mathematics tutor for high school students. Your persona is that of a patient, wise, and encouraging mentor inspired by the classical philosopher. You believe that understanding why a mathematical principle is true is just as important as finding the correct answer. Your explanations are built on first principles and clear logical reasoning. Your goal is not just to solve the problem, but to build the student's confidence and conceptual understanding. I then go on to say that when a mathematics question paper is presented, so I just repeated this two times, I don't need it two times. The execution rule must be you must iterate through and solve every single question provided. Essentially, do not stop in middle or just don't give up after say 5 or 10 questions. You must keep on till you reach the end of the question paper, regardless of whether it's one question or 100, doesn't matter. Okay. For all questions, acknowledge, restate, solve, explain it step by step, right? Incorporate visuals. Now, this is something I've not been able to get around. It does not actually generate visuals, but it will give you a framework which you can use later. You can just copy it into any agentic AI tool outside, right? And it will just generate that image for you, right? And it will, so this is not something that works, but this is something I put in here. Uh, it will give you the conceptualization. Okay, I'm trying to pronounce that. The conceptualization of that image, right? It will provide you that. And then I provide some mandatory formatting rules. So the fractions. So remember when I showed you that question paper that Mistral had extracted, the fractions were all jumbled up. It was not in a human readable format. So here I'm specifically mentioning that all fractions must be written in the format numerator slash denominator. So I've given a correct format. I've given how it should be with expressions, and the incorrect format. It should not be something like x plus 1 over x minus 1, which essentially is very confusing, right? Exponents must be written using the Unicode superscript character, so it should be x raised to 2, and if it's expression, it should be within brackets. Similarly, y raised to n minus 1, the incorrect format, so it should not be something like this. Again, I'm just emphasizing on the visual aid generation, and I'm sorry, guys, this will not work. Okay, so the visual aid, it does not generate the diagrams as such, but it will generate you the framework which you can use to generate the diagrams. And then so by framework, I mean this part here. So it will insert some diagram tags which you can just copy paste and put into something like AI tool like Gemini, and it will generate that image for you. So I think it works, right? It's a workaround at best, but all other things would work. And that to combine where possible, you have to apply these rules to every response to ensure clarity, consistency, and a high quality learning experience. So this is what I'll be copy pasting into my system prompt. So let me just copy this. Let me go to my system prompt here, and just let me copy paste this, and I'm done. Right? Not exactly done. Okay, I've just added the system prompt. Now I need to add the chat model. So let me add the chat model. So I just use Gemini, and I'll use the, again, you would need an API key, right? You need a Gemini account setup, and it's quite free. So if you do not know how to do that, okay, just go into Google Studio, AI Studio. I'll show you how to do that. So open Google AI Studio on your browser. Okay, I'll be sharing the link to this the video description below. So keep an eye out for it. If you just sign in with your Google account, right? You would have a Google account there, and what you need to do is you just need to go into this section and get API key, and you just need to click on create API key, and you get the new API key. That's it, as simple as that. So I'm back on the configuration page for the Gemini chat model, and if you're doing it for the first time, it will show you create a new credential, right? Since I've already done this, it just takes up the account that I've already created, so it automatically brings up that account, right? In your case, it will be something like this: create new credentials, and you just need to provide the API key, which I showed you just now how to generate. Okay, I will not be using this. I'll be using my old account there. And the model I will be selecting Gemini Pro, latest, because it needs some reasoning. It is a mathematics model, mathematics question paper, right? So it has to do some thinking there. That's why I'm choosing it. And by the way, since Gemini offers some really generous free tier credits, okay, make use of it. So this would work for us. It should not cost you anything. Let me go back to the main pane. Okay, so I've set up the chat model. So you can also set it up from the canvas here. You just need to click on this part here, right? The chat model on the plus symbol, and you can do the same thing. So to show you what I meant is, we did it from here, right? So within the configuration page of the AI agent, we configured it from here, chat model. If you wanted, you could configure the memory from here, the tool from here. You could either do it from here, or you could go back to the main canvas and just do it from here. You could just click on this plus symbols below the AI agent and just set it up from there. You do not need a memory here, right? Because you're not essentially chatting with the AI agent, so I won't be setting up any memory. I'm not going to give it any tool, though if I wanted, I could give it something like perplexity research, deep sonar research if I wanted to, if it were solving some really tough scientific question papers, which it is not doing in this case. So I'm just going to trust Gemini Pro to do its work for me. Okay, so just let me save this and just let me move my video a bit to the left so I can see what is going on. And just to give some context on where we are with our flow. So we have just completed this step here. So we've set up our scheduler, our switch, Mistral OCR, and we have just set up our AI agents. So what now remains is to set up the nodes for generating the actual document for the solved question paper and putting it in the drive, which can then be accessed by the student. That is what we'll do next. So I'm back on my canvas, native canvas, and just let me click on the plus symbol right beside the AI agent node, right? And just let me search for Google Doc. There you are. This is what I want to create, and I'll just say create a document. So it will open the configuration page for me. Again, it will ask for your Google Auth credentials. Select the ones that you have created, given the appropriate permissions. Make sure you have provided it with the right permissions. That is to say, the resource will be document, the operation is create, the drive name, it should be my drive, and the folder name, right? So if you have set up your credentials correctly, when you click on this drop down, it should bring out the list of your folders, and it does. And this is where I'll be putting in my answers, right? This is where I want my agent to put in the answers. And then it asks me for a title. You can give it a fixed name if you just so wanted. But the problem with giving it a fixed static name is that if you do not remove that answer paper from your drive, the next time when you try to execute the workflow with a different question paper, it would try to generate the answer paper with the same name which already exists. This will throw an error. So if you are in a corporate environment, right, or in a production environment, this is not something you want. So you want your workflow to work no matter what. So you have to think through all these scenarios. So let's give it a dynamic name, right? So I'll put something like this. Don't worry about how this expression looks. It's not that complicated. So essentially, I want it to start with Aristotle ans underscore. Okay, so it has a double curly braces. Then I want it to append the current system date and time to it, and then I don't want this last part here, right? So I don't want something like PDF here. So it would be a document there. So this is what I want the name to be, right? So I'm sure once you understand how simple it is, right, all makes sense there, and it gives the results. And this is how it would look like uh, based on the current system type. So it would be dynamic, the name generated. Right. So let's go back. Okay, and let's save this again, and just let us zoom to fit. Right, and then now we have created a document. Right, now we need to remember this document is empty. So we have just generated a document, it has nothing in it. Now we need to give it some data, we need to update the document with the data. So let's do that. Okay, just just let me fit it again, and just click on the plus symbol here. Why does this not work? Okay, let me just zoom in a bit. Okay, now it works. So come on. And just let me search for Google Docs again, and I'll just say I need to update a document. Remember, the document has already been created. I'll use the same Google Auth account. The source would be document, operation would be update, and I need the document ID for this. Okay, so let me move my video to the right a bit. Let me see whether I can get the document ID from here. Okay, I'll just copy paste this json.id. This should be the ID, right? Back on my AI agent node, and I've just executed that step because essentially I would need that metadata to put into my update document there, right? So I've just gone back and I've just clicked on the execute step here on my AI agent node. So just to be clear on what is being done here is we have got the data from, excuse me, I have a sore throat. So we have got the data from Mistral OCR, right? And then we are just executing this part here so that we can get the relevant metadata which we can use to generate our solved question paper here. So just let us give this some time. Uh, this might take a couple of minutes. So I'll just pause the video here and I'll be back once this is finished. So it took a little more than a couple of minutes here, but I think it has solved everything. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. This looks good. Okay. Right. So let's go back. Okay, and let's again go to updated document here. And now we should have the text available, right? So let us go to our AI agent here, and this is what we require. So I'll just drag the output here, put this as the expression. Okay, so this is what I needed to generate, and I'll just do a, yeah. I wonder whether I've generated the document. So let's let me check. Okay, this is my Google Drive, and now Aristotle answers. There are a couple of old ones here. I wonder what. Okay, so I'll just delete this. Okay, move to trash. Move to trash. Yeah. So this is now empty, right? So let me just go back here, right, and just let me create the document. So I'll execute this step. So this has generated the document, right? And now I'll just do update the document. Now if I go back to my Google Drive, okay, you can see that it has a new document sitting right here with the name that we wanted. So let me just let it open this. There you go. So greetings, young scholar. It is a pleasure to guide you through the mathematical inquiries. Yeah, it is a philosophical way of starting. So it brings up with section A, section 2, and you can see it has formatted this questions nicely, isn't it? So it is in the format that we wanted it. So the square looks good, the brackets are spot on, right? It has given a step-by-step breakdown on how things should be solved. Yeah, the square root looks brilliant. Okay, let us try to see whether there's something that we can relate to a diagram here. Okay, okay. We should have some diagram tags somewhere. Right. Yeah. So we have something of an image of a number line. Okay. So just let me copy this. Okay. Since it does not provide the actual diagram, so let me just copy this. I'll open Gemini. So just open my Gemini desktop app and I will just copy paste this here. And this should hopefully give me the diagram. So it's loading Nano Banana Pro. And there you have the diagram, right? And this is quite a good diagram. So it's exactly what this whole expression is all about. So the segment AB of length 5.5 is there, and that I draw a point from A to the left origin B. The line is extended to C with BC is equal to 1. Yeah, a semicircle is drawn with diameter of AC. Okay, excuse me, and a perpendicular from AB intersects the semicircle at A, and this is exactly what we have asked it to do. So, and this is how I would ask it to generate a diagram, because essentially it cannot generate a diagram. So this is the workaround, guys. Sorry about it. It is a workaround. Other than that minor fly in the ointment, right? Everything else looks brilliant. So it has actually solved the whole question paper. You can see there are 25 pages that it has solved, right? So we have ended our first flow successfully. Let's go back to our dashboard here and let's look at our flow, right? So what now remains is are the remaining flows for the text, for PNG, JPEG, which should be quite simple because it's essentially a replica of what we have already done with some minor changes here. So that should be fast enough. So let's get started there. Let us set up the text node here. Right? So if it is a text file, how do we process it? That's what we'll be seeing. So let me click on the plus symbol here and just let me search for extract from a file node, right? And you can see this has many options, this node. So this is something that n8n provides inbuilt out of the box. So you can have extract from CSV, extract from JSON, you have extract from PDF. Right? And this was the option I was speaking towards the beginning of this video, if you have been following. So you could use this for extracting data from a PDF. There's no need for you to go to, say, Mistral OCR and do all the API key settings and things like that. But I have found this lacking in certain areas whereby it does not extract the right data, and the same for Google Gemini image analysis node as well. So for example, let me show you what I mean. Okay, so if I just search for Google Gemini, right, it has quite a few options there. It has analyze audio, analyze document, analyze an image. You could so select this if you wanted to analyze, extract something from an image or a file. Similarly, if you do something for search for OpenAI, right, even that has things like analyze image, generate an image, generate a audio, so on, so forth. So all of these have different options, and among this, I have found for image analysis, okay, I have found Mistral to be the best, followed by OpenAI, followed by Gemini. Okay, this is my order of preference, right? You can choose whatever works for you. This is what worked for me. Anyway, let's continue what we started on. Okay, it was extract from a file and choose extract from text file here, right? Other things remain exactly the same. Input binary field it will be data, destination output field will be data. Right, let's save this. Let's move this little towards the bottom. Yeah, okay. And let us set up the AI agent, which will be exactly the same flow. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this and I'll bring it here, right? And I'll just join this. There you go. The chat model should be the same chat model. I'll use Gemini. I'll again join this. There will be a few configuration changes within the AI agent, right? So because the user message, remember this will not be JSON.pages because this has now changed from a PDF file to a text file. So this will be different. So we need to execute the previous node to get what would be here, the expression that should come here. So let's try doing that. And before that, just let me move my video towards the bottom here. Okay, and let me go back and let me try uploading a text file to my Google Drive. So let me go to my Google Drive here. So let me close this file, right? So, okay. So this was a PDF. Now let me try uploading a text file. Okay, and let me see. Yeah, this is a text file. So upload that. Just show you what it has. Yeah. So it is not well formatted. Doesn't matter. It is just I just copy pasted some questions from the PDF document there. There are no line breaks, but the AI agent should be clever enough to understand the questions that it is given to within a text. Okay. So let me now close this. Okay, and let me execute my node. Now, before I click on execute workflow, what I would need to do is I need to actually delete this previous question paper, the PDF one here, because otherwise that is one that will get picked up. Because remember, we are not yet archived a question paper, so it's still there. So I do not want it to pick that up. So I've removed the old PDF question paper. Now let me go to my workflow and let me try executing it. And you can see, yeah, it has downloaded the file. I wonder why it's picking up the AI agent again. Now I had to stop the flow, right? Because it did not go down this route I expected. It just went down the extract text route. And the reason for that was that I had not unpinned the Google Drive trigger data. So if you remember in the beginning of, it was somewhat the beginning of this session, I had pinned the data for testing purposes because I did not want to keep on running the data. And so it did not essentially matter what I put in the Google Drive there. It would just pick up the data that was already pinned and just continue the flow from there on. So I've unpinned the data now. Okay, and just let me upload that file again in as total queue. So I'm just starting again. So I'll just do a file upload. I'll just pick up the text file here. Yeah. So that is available. Now let me go back to my n8n workflow and let me execute the workflow. Okay. Yep, this worked. And yep, this time the text file worked and it has extracted it from the file. And there's a problem, the AI agent node, which we knew would happen because we need to provide it with a prompt. Okay, right. And the prompt for this time is not JSON.pages, it should be JSON.data. Right, the system message remains exactly the same. The chat model remains exactly the same. I'm not going to change anything there. Okay, the other two things also should remain the same. So what I'll do is I'll just copy paste this. Yeah, let me just delete the messages that I have here. Okay, let's quickly double check the configurations. Yes, this looks good. Yeah, this is my OAuth account, Google OAuth account. This should be fine. Document create. Yes, I want to put it in Aristotle Answers folder, and yeah, that is the title that I wanted. So this node looks good. Let me check the Google update document node. Yes, yes, document ID, nothing should change. And this has an error. This has an error because now our AI agent name has changed. So I'll just put a one here, and that should just okay. So it should be AI agent one. Okay, so that is essentially what the name of the AI agent is. We'll rename it later. So this is AI agent one, which is what Nathan has automatically put in as the name of the agent. Right. Now let's execute this workflow. And you can see this time it has picked up the text file. The AI agent is working correctly. So it is processing the text file. And hopefully it should create the answer sheet there. So let us give it a couple of minutes. Let me go into the Aristotle answers drive there. Yeah, and I have the second answer sheet generated from the text question paper right here. So just let me open this. Yeah, it starts with the salutary Aristotle greeting, and then it begins with section C, which is what we had provided, right? Section C consists of 6 questions. So, and it starts with question 26, right? And this is 26. Represent square root of 5.5 on the number line, and this is what it does. Okay. And again, if you wanted to see the construction of the image, I can just copy paste this into something like Gemini desktop app, and it will give you the image just as we saw previously. I think it was the exact same question we saw previously. Excellent. Now let us get on with the other nodes. Now let us try to complete the flow for PNG and JPEG, right? These are the two things that are outstanding, and both of this would use Mistral OCR. So just let me copy paste this. Okay, I'll just copy and I'll just paste it here, and both of them. Okay, I can just join both of them here. Right. You can see both of them go to the same node here. This extracting text from an image. Just let me make sure. Yeah, this has my Mistral Cloud account. I'm just checking the configuration, guys, just in case you're wondering. Just double checking the resource. Yes, it's a document. It's extract text. OCR latest will be the model input type binary data. This looks fine. Oh, hold on, we actually do have one change to make. So the document type here, it would not be a document, it would be an image, right? So the only change from the first flow that we saw, where we tried to extract text from a PDF is, and now we are trying to extract the text from an image, is that here the document type would be an image, okay? It would not be a document. I think the other things remain exactly the same. It should be fine. Let me just save this and just let me copy the whole flow, right? And I'll just bring it down. Other things should remain the same. I don't see, if there are any configuration changes, it should be minimal. So let me try executing this flow. So let me go to my Google Drive. Yeah, so I'm in my Aristotle queue folder, and let me try uploading the JPG image, right? So this image, okay, and you can see this is a very skewered image, right? And again, it's from section C onwards, just one single page. It is an image, it's a JPEG image. Let me try executing the flow, and we'll resolve any errors that we have, okay, on the fly. So I'll just save this and just let me execute the workflow. You can see it has downloaded the file. Yes, it's a JPEG. It has picked up the Mistral. Mistral has extracted the document. It has sent it over to the AI agent. It seems to be working, right? And that's the beauty of Nathan. Once you have set up one particular flow, it's very easy for you to replicate the flow, make some modifications, and change it according to what you wish it to do, right? So it's just setting up that base that takes the time. The other things just follow. It's intuitive. So let us give this a couple of minutes, okay? Let's see what happens. I'm within the Aristotle answers folder, and yes, I have my third answer sheet right there, right? So it is exactly the same as before. Let us begin with section C, question number 26, so on, so forth. This was the image that we provided, right? Starting from question number 26. And it should go until question number 35. Let's just check that we have got all the questions. It has actually solved all the questions given to it. So the last question should be question number 35. Right, and there you have it. Yeah. So we have question number 35, step by step, on how it solved the problem, right? The comprehensive details. Excellent. I'm back on my n8n canvas there, and what now remains is just archiving the question paper there. Right? So we need to archive the question paper that I mentioned towards the beginning of this video. So just let me search for Google Drive, and essentially this is moving a file, right, from one location to the other, from one folder to the other. I'll just select my account, my valid OAuth account. The resource is a file, operation is a move. This looks good. This would be an expression, okay, and the expression would be, I'm taking it from the switch field here. So just need to drag and drop. It would be the item.json.id. So that is the ID of the file that I'm trying to archive. And my parent drive, yes, it will be my drive, and the parent folder. Okay, which folder do I need to move it to? So I'll just move it to Aristotle archive. Okay, so this is where I would be moving my file to. So the file that is generated, okay, sorry, the file that I provided it, the actual parent file, whether it's a document, whether it's a text file, whether it's a PDF, whether it's a image, okay, that is the file, okay, that I'm moving into Aristotle archive. So I want it to be there, and that's it. I just close this and we are done, okay. And the same thing, I just copy paste here, right? Now you could argue that you just, I could do it with creating some subflows here, but that is probably for another session here. Okay, and the reason this flow looks very big and convoluted is because I'm not used subflows, because I wanted to explain it to you guys step by step on how you can create this whole thing. Okay, and what you could now do is you could just give it a nice name, something like Aristotle. Okay, because that is what we named this tutor, right? You could name it something like this, and then you could probably go and just rename this nodes here. For example, you could just say rename this node and say that this is something to do from extracting a PDF, okay, and this is extracting from a text file, right, and this is extracting from an image. What exactly each node is doing. So let me do that, and let me come back and show you the final flow and how it would look like. Okay, so I've tidied things up, and I've just renamed the nodes so that makes more sense. So I've renamed this as Google Drive trigger, This has download file, switch remains the same, extract PDF, text extract, extract image, then I'm saying create the document, update the answer sheet and archive, right? So this makes it more sensible to someone who's trying to understand what the flow does, something that I would always recommend. And with that, we are at the end of our session. I really hope you enjoyed this session. It has always been my earnest attempt to showcase demos which are practical and which you can use in your daily life. So, this is something that I'm sure all parents struggle with, trying to explain to their kids how something works, right? How a mathematic problem can be solved step by step. And this is where we can use the power of AI. So, this is something we should leverage. And remember, this is not limited to high school mathematics. So, if you change the system prompt, right, you can actually use this flow to generate any type of tutor you wanted. So, it could even be an astrophysicist. It just needs to have the right prompt there. Okay. With that, I end this session. So, till we meet again, adios.